Hello and welcome back to Happening Horror. It's me, Heather. I'm super excited for this episode because I'm going to be talking about a cult classic and one of my favorites, Stephen King's It. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about the book, the original 1990s miniseries with Tim Curry, and the new films that came out in the 2010s. And we're going to talk about everything they have in common and stuff that was taken out for good reason. I can't wait, so let's get started. So for any book reader, it's really hard when they take one of your favorite books, like It, and they take it and they make it into a visual media platform, such as the 1990s miniseries with Tim Curry and the 2017 and 2019 films. But I think despite the fact that they took this book, which is 1,125 pages, and condensed it down to what it is, they did a phenomenal job. And by they, I mean the directors. And I want to talk about what the directors did for both the miniseries and for the films. But I want to start with It Chapter 1, so let's go to there. Usually in the film industry, we see lots of people complaining that, oh, don't do a remake, don't try to bring back to life these kinds of characters or anything. But I do believe the job was well done when it came to the modern It movies. Andy Muschietti, the director for both the modern films, did a great job of condensing it down, this 1,125 page book, and keeping the plot solid, where we're not getting lost. Maybe we're asking a couple questions, especially for those who have not read the book, but regardless, he keeps us entertained. And I want to say that right off the bat, the opening scene, the classic one with Georgie, is pretty book accurate, and it is also kind of accurate to the original miniseries. In both the book and the miniseries, we do see the neighbor who is witnessing Georgie chasing his boat down the street while it's raining, and it is going into the gutter. Now, in the new 2017 film, we see the neighbor standing on her porch. She sees Georgie, doesn't think anything of it, turns away and leaves. In the book and in the miniseries, she does not leave. She is standing there watching Georgie out in the street. She witnesses his death. She witnesses him being taken into the gutter by Pennywise. In the modern film, we only see her witness the blood stain on the ground. And this was done, I believe, to give a little bit of hope and a little bit of mystery for those who have never seen the original It or read the book. And also for our character Billy, George's older brother, that there might be a hope that Georgie is still alive. That was a big detail that was left in with one minor adjustment. Both the actors who portrayed Pennywise did a wonderful job. Tim Curry, the one and only from the 1990 original miniseries, and Bill Skarsgård from the new film. Tim Curry definitely brought forward the very clownish character. He made Pennywise that stereotypical creepy clown. And I think what made his clown really sinister is definitely the costuming. The costuming really helped Tim Curry channel Pennywise, because a lot of people are already terrified of clowns, and when you see a clown with a bright red hair, a colorful jumpsuit, you don't automatically think that something terrible is going to happen. Well, it does, regardless. And there are several scenes with him in the miniseries that definitely give you the creeps and give you a psychological thrill, like when he's standing in the creek with all the balloons just staring. Now, Bill Skarsgård brought a different level to Pennywise and really didn't copy too much of Tim Curry's. What I do enjoy about Bill Skarsgård is that he seemed to be a little more playful, especially when he's coaxing victims and manipulating them. He does a phenomenal job of bringing that to light with Pennywise. He brought his own rendition of an iconic character to life very well. Now, his costume, on the other hand, definitely was updated for us modern audiences. the more muted tones of the gray with the small red accents, and the more of a redhead look versus just a red look of hair, I thought was pretty clever. And then his little jig he does in the films is very creepy, but also playful, which I thought was wonderfully done by Mr. Skarsgård. So I'm just comparing them on what I like of both each. I think both actors were wonderful at portraying Pennywise, without a doubt. They definitely brought it to life in their own way. And a fun fact about Bill Skarsgård, he actually can move each one of his eyes individually. I will actually post a link down there for you, because Bill Hader actually found out that he could do that while filming It Chapter 2. Another fun fact is that if you watch closely in the new It Chapter 1 film that came out in 2017, when Georgie is being coaxed down into the wonderful sewer by Pennywise, you'll notice that his eyes are a little more enticing light blue color. And as he goes in for the kill for Georgie, you will notice that his eyes turn a yellowish amber color. If you did notice this, let me know down below, and if you didn't, sorry for the spoiler, but definitely watch out for it. In the book, it can take many forms. In the original writings by Stephen King, it takes forms of very iconic Universal Studios horror characters like the creature from the Black Lagoon and so on and so forth. But due to copyright, these creatures or characters were not allowed to be portrayed or mentioned in both the TV series and the modern films. But regardless of that, it was kept to book accuracy, needless to say, that it does take the form of what the kids fear the most. That was a major detail that was left in. So if you have read the books and you have seen the films and the TV series, I'm sure that you did pick up on that pretty quickly. So keeping details like that in can really change up a film adaptation of a book. Three major things about these series. In the book, Beverly does not cut her hair at all. That was added solely for the film. Secondly, the bathroom scene with Beverly, where the hair pulls her into the sink and blood is spurted out, was also not in the book. That was a creative liberty taken on by the director. The one thing that is accurate that we end up seeing in the second film is that the timelines do bounce back and forth. We don't see that detail though till the second chapter in the It series. Before I move on to It Chapter 2, even though I've already covered some of it in It Chapter 1, I want to talk about the well house real quick. When we see the Losers Club rolling up to the well house, which we know as that iconic creepy Victorian mansion, you see sunflowers at the front yard. Whether this was a creative liberty taken by the set designers and the director, or just by happenstance, I think it's pretty fitting. Doing some of the research for this video, I found out that sunflowers are actually a representation of loyalty, happiness, and adoration, which I think is very fitting for the Losers Club. They are very loyal to each other and they work well together. So I do hope that was on purpose, because if it was a great detail that could be easily overlooked when you're watching the film for the first time. Continuing on with this video, I'm going to talk about It Chapter 2. And real quick, I want to talk about how much it actually cost to make the film. It had an estimated budget of $79 million, which made it one of the most expensive horror films ever made. Amazing. Considering that the first It Chapter 1 only had a $39 million budget, which is still pretty sufficient considering what was produced, and then the TV miniseries only had a whopping $12 million to produce 2 massive episodes. So on that note, I want to keep moving forward and talking about all 3 of those right now. Before I move forward, we all know it's not one of my videos unless I bring up the composer for the film, because music is so important to me in films. Benjamin Wallfisch was the composer for this film, and he did a phenomenal job. You might be familiar with his work if you've watched movies like Annabelle Creation, The Invisible Man, which came out in 2020, Shazam, and Lights Out. All wonderful, wonderful films. Now, one of my favorite pieces of music that's in It Chapter 2 is actually the scene where the little girl meets her untimely end under the bleachers. We already met this little girl earlier in the film at the very, very beginning when she's handed the stuffed animal. Now, the reason I like the music for this so much is because it still lands on that perception of an innocent child like we see throughout the entire book and the first movie. She doesn't understand that what she's doing probably isn't the best thing in the world. She meets a stranger down there. She says, no, you're not my friend, you're scary. She leaves and is manipulated. Here's the thing. As she's coming down, it's a very light-hearted, kind of almost like a lullaby kind of music. Very inviting, not really sinister, until she starts to move a little more forward towards Pennywise. That's when you see the music change. And it changes it so dramatically. It goes from a nice lullaby to something super sinister. And also watch out for that eye color change that we talked about earlier in Pennywise. But that whole sequence of events with that music is some of my favorite pieces of music for a horror film. Well done, Benjamin. I can't wait to see what else you produce in your next films. Second film, we also see one of the best scenes in the movie, the Paul Bunyan scene with Richie. This scene was put in via a request from Stephen King because he said it was one of his favorite scenes in the book and he would love for it to be in there. And of course, Andy, the director, said 100%, let's do it. It was such a well-directed and executed scene with Bill Skarsgård and with everyone else in the scene as well. I was so happy that was put in there, being that it's such an iconic scene in the book. And you know, when you have a request from the writer to put one of their favorite scenes in, you might want to say yes every now and then. Continuing with details in the film that were kept in and very well executed is Bill's stutter. If we remember from the first film and from the book and the TV series, we all remember that when Bill gets frightened or scared or starts to get nervous, his stutter starts to come through very much. And while being away from Derry, his stutter basically went away. Upon returning, we start to see it slowly make a comeback. And I think that was a great detail that was thrown in by not only the actor James McAvoy, but also the writers and director of the film as well. It really added to the continuity of the character and helped us develop him even further along. And on that note, can we just talk about how well cast this entire film was, with heavy hitters like James McAvoy and Jessica Chastain and Bill Hader, among many others. So well done, and they all brought something wonderful to the grown-up versions of the Losers Club. So if we want to talk about timeline consistency when it came to making the TV series and the mini film, the TV series is more close to the original timeline of the book. The book events actually start taking place in 1957 with Georgie's death. 8 months after Georgie's death, Bill says that's when the horrors start to really take place, which pushes us closer to 1960, which is when the TV miniseries actually takes place. In the movies, the events start taking place in 1989. Now, I do believe this was done for more modern audiences to be a little more relatable to the characters and even to just modern day events. So that's one detail that was kind of majorly shifted, I think, just to appease modern day audiences. Directors love to take creative liberties, and It Chapter 2 was no exception for Andy, the director. In It Chapter 2, we see a scene that has now become pretty infamous with the film itself, and that is the scene with Jessica Chastain in the bathroom towards the end of the film, where it gets flooded with almost 4,500 gallons, according to my research, of fake blood. Even though supposedly she had opted for more blood along with the director, she still said it was a very gross and kind of icky scene to film because of all of the blood. The blood does look phenomenally real, so here we go to the props department for getting that up there and creating that wonderful concoction. And then thank you to the director for making us queasy to our stomachs forever. Before I wrap up this video, I just want to say that one of my favorite performances in this entire film was actually that of Bill Hader towards the end, when you really get to see the tough, sarcastic Richie be broken down by watching his best friend meet his untimely end. It was such an emotional performance, especially the first time I watched it. It actually kind of brought a tear to my eye, seeing how raw it became. And I was so impressed with Bill Hader, having only really seen him in a comedy role. He did the role of Richie so well in the It Chapter 2. It just still gets me every time. Thank you yet again for joining me on my channel, Happening Horror. I always have so much fun just sharing my thoughts about my favorite horror films, and I'm so glad I got to do It by Stephen King and talk about the book, the mini-series, and the wonderful films that have come out in recent years. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the movie Mama, which was given to us by the same wonderful director who gave us the modern-day It films. But also, remember, you got to subscribe, ring the bell, like, and comment. That way you get updates when I post new videos every week. I want everyone to stay safe and to stay spooky.